I still remember the night. Everything changed. The snow falling outside, the storm knocking out the power, and the flicker of firelight painting his face in gold. We were supposed to be friends. We'd always been that. Study partners, road trip buddies, each other's safe place. But that night in the cabin, when he reached for a blanket, his hand brushed mine, and neither of us pulled away. And maybe that's where it started, not with a kiss, not with words, but with silence that felt too loud and eyes that said everything we didn't dare to. The storm outside wasn't supposed to last all night. Shepard said it'd clear by sunset, that we'd be back on the road before dark. But now the clock ticked past midnight. The wind howled like it was angry, and we were two guys stuck in an old wooden cabin miles from anywhere. I tried not to look at him too long. He sat across from me on the floor, hoodie half-zipped, hair falling into his eyes, a single strand catching the light from the fireplace. I told myself we were just waiting it out. That's all. But every time he looked at me, I felt like the air got thinner, like the storm wasn't outside anymore. He caught me staring once. Didn't say anything, just smirked. And that smile, it was a kind of quiet trouble you didn't walk away from. We'd been friends since freshman year. He'd helped me move into my dorm, let me copy his notes, showed up when I needed someone to talk to at 2 a.m., and now here we were, sitting in a cabin we rented to unplug for the weekend, because that's what best friends did, right? Except I didn't remember friendship feeling like this. Not when our knees brushed on the blanket. Not when he leaned close to throw another log into the fire, his shoulder barely an inch from mine. Not when he whispered, "You cold?" And the way he said it didn't sound like small talk. I'm fine. I lied, but my pulse wasn't. The room went darker when the fire popped, smoke curling upward. Shepard stretched his arm over his head, the hem of his shirt lifting just enough to distract me. And he noticed. He always noticed. "Something on your mind?" he asked, voice low, teasing. "Just tired." "Sure." He leaned back on his elbows, his gaze steady, unreadable. There was something in his eyes that wasn't there before, or maybe I just never let myself see it. It wasn't pity. It wasn't curiosity. It was recognition. Like he knew, like he'd known for a while. We talked about nothing for hours, music, classes, the kind of nonsense that fills a silence. But the real conversation was happening in between. In every glance that lasted too long, in every sentence that stopped halfway. The snow outside turned into white noise. The only thing that mattered was the space between us. Shrinking. He reached for the blanket, and our fingers brushed again. This time, neither of us moved. My heart stuttered. His eyes flicked down to our hands, then up to mine. I forgot to breathe. "Shepard." "Yeah." I couldn't finish the sentence. Maybe I didn't need to. He sat up slowly, closing the space that had been there for years. No words, just a fire crackling, the wind outside, and two friends who suddenly didn't know what that word meant anymore. I could feel the heat from his skin even before he touched me. And when he did, just his hand resting over mine, it felt too familiar and too new at once. "We shouldn't," I whispered. "Then don't move," he said quietly. That was the problem. I didn't. The night stretched on, full of things we didn't say. He didn't push. He didn't cross the line. But he also didn't let go of my hand. Hook 600 words. It was enough. Too much. Maybe. Enough to make me realize that the person I trusted most had become the one I couldn't stop thinking about. And in the flicker of firelight, as the storm raged outside, I understood something terrifying and beautiful. It wasn't about what we did. It was about what we felt. And I wasn't ready for what that meant. When the fire finally burned low, he stood up and stretched. "Get some sleep?" he said softly. "Yeah." But as he turned toward the couch, he hesitated just a second, then looked back at me. Our eyes met in the half-dark. No words. Just a heartbeat that lasted too long. And that's when I knew. Tomorrow, nothing would feel the same again. The storm had stopped sometime before dawn. When I opened my eyes, the cabin was a blur of gray light and cooling embers. Shepard was still asleep on the couch, one arm hanging loose, hair messy, breathing even. For a moment, I just watched him. The peace on his face, the way his lips parted slightly like he was caught mid-dream. My chest tightened, because last night hadn't been a dream. His hand had found mine, and that meant something, even if neither of us dared to say it out loud. I sat up, rubbing the back of my neck. The air smelled like smoke and pine, heavy but clean. Outside, snow covered everything, silent, unbroken, perfect. He stirred then, eyes opening slowly. "Morning," he said, voice rough, sleepy. "Hey," I whispered. We both hesitated. It wasn't awkward, just fragile. Like one wrong word could undo everything that happened by the fire. "You okay?" he asked. Yeah, I lied again, but I wasn't, because all I could think about was the warmth of his hand in mine, and the truth that I'd never be able to pretend it didn't matter. He stretched, stood, and went to make coffee. Every movement felt too normal, too easy for what hung between us. "I'll grab the car once the road clears," he said. "Sure." I tried to sound calm, but my voice cracked. He looked over his shoulder. "What's going on in that head of yours?" I shrugged, just thinking. "About last night?" He asked it like he already knew the answer. I didn't respond. Didn't have to. He set the coffee down and walked back toward me, slow, careful, like approaching something wild. "You don't have to freak out," he said quietly. "I'm not." He smiled faintly. "You're doing that thing with your hands." I looked down. My fingers were shaking. "I don't know what that was," I said. "I just felt it too," he interrupted. That stopped me cold. He rubbed the back of his neck, eyes darting away. I didn't mean to make things weird. I just couldn't pretend anymore. My heart hammered, so hard I swore he could hear it. Outside, a gust of wind shook snow from the trees. Inside, it was too quiet to breathe. He sat beside me again, same spot as last night. This time, we didn't need the fire. "I keep thinking about how long we've known each other," he said softly. "For years." "Yeah, and how it always felt easy. It still does." He looked at me then, really looked. The kind of look that doesn't stop at the surface. "You sure about that?" I swallowed hard. "I don't know. I just know it's different now." Silence stretched between us again, but it wasn't heavy this time. It was full, like both of us were waiting for something to make sense. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring at the dying fire. "I don't want to lose what we have," he said. "You won't." He gave a small laugh. "You say that like it's easy." "It's not," I admitted, "but I don't want to go back to pretending either." He looked over at me then, eyes warm, uncertain, alive. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he reached out again, slower this time, his hand brushing mine like a question. I didn't pull away, didn't even breathe. "It's okay," he whispered. And maybe it was. Maybe it finally was. We sat there until the light changed, until the gold of morning filled the cabin, and the storm outside became just a memory. When we finally stepped outside, the world looked different. Clear, bright, quiet. He smiled at me, that familiar, half-teasing grin that used to mean nothing more than friendship. Now it meant everything. I smiled back, because even if nothing else made sense, this did. He was just my friend once. But somewhere between the storm and the sunrise, Shepard had become something I couldn't name, and maybe I didn't need to.